Hello again, book lovers, and today I'm talking about The Evolution of Everything by Matt Ridley. Yes, it's another Matt Ridley. I read my first one not long ago, and I have a habit of, if I think I might be interested in an author, to buy a couple of their books to see whether they're just repeating the same information or whether they can give you some new insights. And this one scores very highly on that metric, because what he does here is to take the evolutionary biology arguments and apply them, rather than to genetic material, to more abstract things such as morality, culture, technology, education, government, religion, etc. And the basic theme of the book is that evolutionary biology is a good explanatory mechanism for the evolution of all these and more, because there are 16 different chapters. Different areas in which this idea is applied. Whether you think they're successful or not, at least they're interesting and challenging. In fact, I found myself nodding furiously at every page of chapter 10, where the author talks about the evolution of education. And there are so many examples of the top-down idea of how to educate our children, which I object to, because they are factory-based. School is a factory. I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? The Industrial Revolution wanted to train people to be good factory hands, good manual workers. So we all go in a group, we learn how to do what we're told, a bell sounds, we all stand up, we go down the corridor to the next room, and we receive our next indoctrination. Now that's a little unkind, of course, because we live in a liberal democracy where alternative viewpoints are allowed. However, I, like Mr. Ridley, would sweep all that away, and I would take education to mean answering the questions that the children have. I'm pretty radical like that. I would do away with syllabuses, or syllabi, if that's what the plural is, and I would try to focus the classes on what is urgent, what is current, and what is new. Because one of the failures of the education system, to me, is that people who teach maths, for example, are often not aware of changes that have happened in the last 10 years, because you graduate, you stop reading the journals, and you just teach plus, minus, divide and multiply. Where, of course, the real maths, the real interesting maths, is happening in logic and number theory, the maths of infinity, chaos, the mysteries of prime numbers and pi, imaginary numbers, Hilbert's Hotel. There are so many fantastic things. The Mandelbrot set, that anyone that studies mathematics would probably, at a normal school, have no idea of. One other thesis in this book is that the great inventors, like Edison would be a prime example, were not the originators. Often not really very outstanding individuals, simply people who are there when the necessary science comes to fruition, like Fleming or Tim Berners-Lee. Let's take the last example. Do we really think that if Tim Berners-Lee hadn't invented the internet, let's put it that simply for now, that the internet wouldn't exist? Surely it's a logical step from connecting computers in order to warn each other of possible defence system hacks, which is, I believe, how ARPANET began, to just saying, well, let's just connect all the computers in the world and we can all have a party. The last chapter, chapter 16, is the evolution of the internet, and there we can see Mr. Ridley's theories evolve in front of us. Up to now, there has been no overarching internet authority that decides how the internet will evolve. And this seems to be the case with many, many new technologies. Of course, the tendency of governments is to regulate and control. And that's where they step in, says this author, is where the problem lies. Going back to the education for a minute, one of the things that I was very surprised at was the amount of literacy among working class people or the population in general, which there was before the introduction of public education, state education in the 1860s and 1870s. It seems that people had organised themselves into schools largely as a result of the Industrial Revolution, where people needed new skills and also had the opportunity to come together with people who knew about stuff. However, that task was then granted the public education system, and literacy shot up from 86% to, yes, it was about 86% apparently, to what, 90% over the next 20 years. Of course, not being a polymath, one of my life's greatest regrets, I'm not equipped to argue about genetic biology and industrial relations, but the arguments presented here at least seem to have legs. If anybody else wants to challenge them, they might be more qualified to me. Of course, some of the arguments are weaker than others, and I get the feeling I'd like to see exactly how strong they are, but the overall case is a good one. So, to sum up, right wing or bottom up, whichever way you tend to look at it, this is an interesting and challenging book and very readable. It certainly fulfills one of the criteria that I look for in a book, in that it actually taught me something and stimulated my thinking on several of these issues. It's always nice to have a challenge, isn't it? Just to test the buzzword coming up, robustness of your own opinions. Happy the person whose opinions are inherently coherent. I don't think you'll ever find one, but we all like to pretend we are that person, don't we? Anyway, if you like a challenge, here's Matt stepping up to the plate to provide several for you in an entertaining and educational way.